All right, here we go. Welcome
Here we
back
go.
to the Battery Podcast, sponsored by Beimel Lead Athletics, with your
That's right.
hosts, Joe Beimel and Brent Dean. All right,
Let's go.
we talked a little bit last week about the yips, right? That's like something
Yeah.
you're not allowed to talk about. You're not allowed to even say it. Everyone like freaks out. Um, I don't have a problem making people a little bit uncomfortable, so we'll talk about it today. Um, I know you've had some experience with it. I can tell my story of a very brief thing that happened to me that didn't turn into anything.
Yeah.
But then some teammates that I've had over the years and stuff like that that have gone through it. And I mean, we might have to be careful because you might turn into like we put this out there, you might turn into the yips guru. So you're going to have everybody with the yips flocking to Los Angeles to work with
Yeah.
you. Just add that to the list of shit to do. But with that being said, I know you've had experience with that. So, I'll just kind of hand it over to you, let you talk about what you've gone through with it, the guys that you've worked with to help with that scenario. And then, I can kind of throw my 2 cents in there a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of guys go through periods of performance anxiety throughout their career. Some guys more than others. And the yips, which obviously people don't like talking about, it's very taboo to bring it up, especially when someone's
Yeah,
going
they
through
don't
it.
even
You
like
just
saying
ignore
that
it.
word.
Don't look at them. Don't even talk to them about it. Um, it is kind of just a form of that. It starts from something pretty small. Usually it escalates into something that becomes possibly just super debilitating. Like you can't even step on a field without it being a major factor of your day. Um, you speak from experience, right? So there's a lot of things that we teach, we train, we assess, we work on because of the paths that we've walked. So I guess a good starting point would just be talking about my own experience with it. Um, I think there's a variety of different ways that these things come up. One of the big, I guess, turning points for me was my first year at UCLA and catching, doing pretty well, kind of putting pressure on the coaches to decide if I'm going to be a backup or a role player, or if I'm really going to be that Friday night starter. Had a pretty good relationship with the Friday night guy. He wanted me to pitch, and it was like, hey, I mean, or he wanted me to catch when he's pitching, and that made a tough decision for him. So through the fall, I was doing pretty well. We had our like blue gold World Series. I ended up winning like the MVP of that, hit a couple home runs and was catching well. But
Hey,
ended up, yeah, like had 4 career home runs and 2 of them were in that. But no,
sick.
the thing that started it was I had a minor flexor mass strain. So in my forearm, there was something going on, and I had someone actually tell me I should get Tommy John, which was a kind of a big light bulb moment. Like, oh, like I might need to really have some intervention here. Ended up not doing it, but throughout that period, still catching bullpens, still trying to be a good teammate, do what I could, hit when I could, listening to the doctors and training staff, of course. But I was throwing bullpens back, and or sorry, I was throwing it back during bullpens. And when I was doing that, I was kind of just underhanding it. So like kind of just flipping it back. And what that ended up doing was creating this weird internal cue for myself to have like this extension at my loading position. And I'd like stab back and then flip it. And I didn't think anything of it because it was like, never had throwing issues my whole life. Get into UCLA, playing my best. I start doing that. As I get healthy, as most athletes, you just adapt and go, okay, well, this is the path of least resistance. So I'm just going to keep doing this. And I'm going to throw it however I can just to be effective. I want to be in the lineup. Um, Poor decision in the long run because I think I ended up having maybe 8 at bats that whole season, my first year, and was really just grinding defensively to be an option when in the long run, it might have been better to actually get some evaluation on that, start working on a cleaner arm stroke, get back to 100% and then have confidence knowing that I could compete at the capacity that I needed to have success there. Um, so that was kind of the catalyst of it. Where once I started throwing again, I had these weird cues where instead of short stroke, getting the arm up, being able to load, hold that position and rotate and launching with like a pretty neutral elbow, my first cue was to push the arm back. And so I had like almost this like scarecrow position, and then probably had some significant weakness in my scap and had no idea about that. So the elbow would just drive down and in and then launch up at the last second. You can dive into all the mechanical issues that were probably needing to be addressed. But the thing that was happening for me is that I started getting super self conscious about it. Where I was like, okay, I didn't have as much video analysis or anything, but like people go, hey, why are you throwing like that? I'm like, I don't know. I saw a
Yeah.
picture of myself at Oregon
More
State and I was
video might
like,
have made it worse.
yeah, or at least I could have had someone potentially help me with it. Like, this is kind of what we do now, right? It's
Yeah.
like intervene sooner rather than just let it continue.
Right.
Um, so that was kind of the catalyst of that process where I was like very unsure how to repeat my mechanics. And I started to get really internally just cued on everything I was doing. Fast forward a couple years, so I ended up doing fine my senior year. Got strong enough, I think, just to be able to throw with it, and it wasn't clean by any means. Got strong enough, was doing enough to where it was repeatable in my full speed movements, but then throwing back to the pitcher, fielding sometimes when you have more time to think about it. That's when it started getting a little bit more obvious that it was like, okay, there's something a little weird here, but whatever. He's effective enough in games. Um, get signed by the Brewers, no issues. I mean, some occasionally, but it was like, he just kind of warms up weird and then he throws fine. There was a moment in spring training, and I can remember it super clearly. It's, um, I think it's my first year. And spring training on the minor league side, there's a lot of covered bullpens, right? So you have 4 to 6 guys throwing around one time and multiple catchers going, and it's covered and outside. So, like normal, I'm just kind of focusing on receiving, giving a good target, trying to be the background because everyone's focusing on the pitcher. So you're just like, just do your job, catch a ball, throw it back. On one of them, I throw it back and it hits the top of the tent or the little pop up, rolls over. Guys look down like, hey, what was that? Oh, my bad. Didn't think anything of it. Next one, like the very next one, catch it, throw it back, goes back, and all the coordinators there are like, hey, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm all good, all good, all good. Yeah, my bad. So of course, kind of shelled in, and I'm like, oh shit! Like everyone's like looking at me. I catch it, and so I just kind of just dart it back. Here you go, right? And so I started doing that because I was like, oh shit! Like I don't want to have people paying attention to me and like watching this. Obviously, not the best thing to do. Started making bad habits. Um,
Yeah.
Started getting really self-conscious about just throwing it back to the pitcher. Like almost cliche, what was that major leagues too with the
Yeah.
catcher that can't throw it back. He's got to like
Yeah.
recite the Playboy articles as he's he's throwing it. Can hose it to second, can throw like fielding 100% because you're just kind of going through your athleticism and you're going through your motions. But throwing it back to the pitcher, I started getting like super like nervous. And that was like the first time I was like, oh man, I think I got the yips. Like it's real. Like that's a thing. So I was able to kind of discover that through just my process, you know, going like, well, what changed and why do I have these weird flaws? I think, to be honest, if I would have had a better strength and arm care routine, I probably could have addressed it more quickly because that's eventually what ended up eliminating it. Where even if I did have biomechanical inefficiencies, I was strong enough to repeat what I was trying to do, and then it didn't hurt. It wasn't like awkward. It was consistent enough where I could throw it back to the pitcher just fine, and I'm not thinking about it. Um, but that's kind of how I got it. How I worked through it. There was a variety of different ways. I actually did work with a little sports psychologist at one point. A lot of it was routine based. Um, but right now, currently, I think I have about 4 athletes that I'm working with that have the yips. Um, Never talk about it with everyone else. I don't, make it public unless it's something they're comfortable talking about. But we've worked with probably dozens over the last few years. So it's a lot more common than a lot of people realize. And the good part is the large majority of guys, they get through it, especially young athletes. They get through it by having something that they can go back to in their routine where they're mentally building confidence without it having to be like an internal compartmentalization of all their movements. Um, and for those of you that have never been through this process or worked with anyone in this process, it's basically trying to break down a fluid movement into like 30 little micro cues. And that's what ends up happening is you're like overthinking how much pressure you're putting on the ball, the position of your wrist, how far back your elbow needs to be, like if your chest is up or down, or if you turn your head or you turn your head this way. And when you cue, do you drive forward or do you push it up? And that's just way too much. And it's
Yeah.
it's literally
I
thinking
can't
that
even
way.
imagine.
Yeah. And it's finding a way to turn those things off, even if it is just splitting them up into like smaller groups and you still have them in your head, but it's like, hey, you got 30 things. Let's break it into like 3 groups of 10 things. And then eventually 3 groups of like 4 things, and then 3 groups of 3 things, and then just one fluid motion. So I'm not a sports psychologist. I'm not a doctor in this field, but I've worked with dozens of guys that have had this, and they've all been pretty relatively successful about returning back to performance by having some type of physical strategy on how they're going to address it, and then some type of mental practice to build without knowing how they're going to perform that day. Even like this week, we had a guy pitching that's just, he's got the yips and it's in game and it's in warmups. And, talking with him, that's where his mind goes. It's like,
Yeah.
man, I'm worried about what all these guys are looking at. Like, I can't feel where my elbow goes in the back. When I release, I feel like my fingers are kind of like on different sides of the ball. And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty classic. Like, what
Yeah, it's
happens? You start
crazy.
thinking about all those things. Um, yeah. And
Well,
like I
I've
said,
heard
go ahead.
yeah, I've just heard over the years too, guys just say they can't feel the ball like in their hand. And I
Yeah.
always sit there and go like, I don't know if I feel the ball in my hand or not. Like it's not something you pay attention to,
Yeah.
until something like that happens, I guess.
Right.
Um, is there anything, do you have anything specific that you did personally, like to get out of it? Did you just kind of flush everything? Did you do like actual physical exercises to
Yeah.
like beat it? Or was it mostly just mental stuff? Or a little
So
bit
it
of
was
everything, I
both.
guess.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
was definitely both. So one of the first things was I started just playing long toss because it was always uncomfortable playing catch within 90 feet for me because it was like, you should be able to hit him right in the chest. Get past 90 feet, get past 120, go out to 200 or 300 feet, and just hit the guy right in the chest. And so
Yeah.
started doing more of that to really build confidence. And essentially, what I was doing was also building some arm speed and arm strength by then having a routine, doing more scap stability work. Um, One of the big breakthroughs I had was in, oh man, it's probably my 4th or 5th year. And I had a guy, Brandon Kinsler, playing the big leagues for a while, right handed pitcher, not a very big guy, but threw pretty well. And, I felt strong. So I was always physically prepared, working out a lot. And it was pretty humbling. There was one point he's like, "Hey, why don't you go through this scap routine with me?" I was like, "What are you talking about? Like, just what's that? Scap routine?" And he's like, "Oh, I got these bands and some weights." And so basically a lot of isometric holds. And I thought, all right, well, that's gonna be super easy. Like I just deadlifted 450 pounds, like can bench press 90s. Like I'm good. Like, it's not a 3 pound band and a 5 pound dumbbell. What's that gonna do? So I started going through it and realized like I had zero isometric strength. like holding an external rotation or a scaption position or shoulder flexion position. And it would just break down and he'd hold it longer than me, be able to position and move. Um, Even just his strength, like being able to hold a 5-pound dumbbell out past his head for 20, 30 seconds was humbling because I assumed like I could just beat him physically in anything. So that was one of the things that I realized like, I never knew those numbers. And that's something that gets addressed with the arm care dynamometers and their path with their program and system now that we've been using for years. Where once I started addressing that, I felt like I was able to move more freely in my throwing routine and not have, these issues where I couldn't throw at 300 feet or it was painful. And then some of the best movements were just kind of returning back to being an athlete, like throwing from various windows, like just dropping the ball down, picking it up and throwing it quickly, flipping it, seeing if I can like just shoot, like throw it into a bucket, basically changing the external cue so that I was focused on that rather than the internal cues. And I guess that's part of the mental routine is like kind of switching what your focus was on. Um,
Yeah.
the good thing is I was still able to play. So throwing at full speed wasn't really the problem. It was like when I had time, the 1, 2, 3 double play, it was like felt like there was 20 seconds in it. Like, oh my God. Okay, I gotta be perfect. I gotta do this and catch it and turn it and
Yeah.
move my feet. And so those were ones that I had a few errors in. Not terrible throws, but definitely off enough. And it was in an era where you can just run over the catchers. So like I would get smashed and then like launch it. um, but some of the best physical routines, if you're feeling a little yippy or a little just off, like you're having a hard time with command, was to start to get more athletic again. Even throwing with you, switching from the 4, the 5, the 6-pound ball or 6-ounce balls, that really helped to just think about the result, like the effectiveness of just, okay, make the adjustment, knowing like I've never done that. That's a different stimulus for me. And I stopped thinking about just like what my arm was doing. Um, and just to pause right there on that, that's something you have to make sure you differentiate too. You do need to work on those mechanical cues. You do need to work on those mechanical inefficiencies. You can't just have a terrible arm path and think, okay, I'm just going to power through it because then you're going to risk pain or poor performance at some point. But it was understanding I had ways to switch my mind into more of a performance mode as I'm working on those things. And as it started to improve, I can go, okay, well, that's the best it's going to be right now. I'm going to compete with this and it's as good as I can be. And I'm just going to have fun and enjoy this versus thinking like, oh man, I'm like 60%. I'm not good, but I'm in the game today. And that's a really tough place to be mentally as an athlete. So that's kind of why it stemmed
Yeah.
with some of the mental game we were talking about was like where your focus is and your mind goes when you're performing. And if you are constantly thinking negative, then you're much more likely to get in a negative performance.
Yeah, no doubt. I remember coming up, to the big leagues, anybody who ever had like problems with the yips, they would always talk to like Steve Blass. Steve Blass was one of our, you know, he was basically one of the commenter, color commentator, whatever that's called
Yeah,
for the
yeah.
Pirates,
The color
and
guy.
traveled with
Yeah.
us and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And great dude, but the yips essentially like cut his career short. Like he never, got over it and never was able to pitch through it. And, anybody who had an issue with it would always go to him because he was kind of that first guy that ever experienced something like that. And he would just be like, I don't know why the hell you're talking to me because I didn't get rid of it. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Like,
Yeah.
don't talk to me. Go figure it out with somebody else. But,
Yeah.
you know, basically my first time ever seeing it, and I never saw it. I've seen people wild and stuff like that, and that's obviously a completely different thing. The first time I ever saw it was Rick Ankiel, like, and I saw
Yeah.
it in person. We were in
That
St.
was a big one
Louis.
in the big leagues.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I mean, he had issues in the playoffs, but then the next year he came back and just didn't get rid of it. I mean, we were in St. Louis and St. Louis, great baseball town, one of the best, you know, in the big leagues. And I just remember sitting there, and he is throwing the ball like 3/4 of the way up the freaking screen with fastball. And you're just sitting there going like, what is going on? And we, you know, they're on the opposite team and we don't really love the Cardinals, but you can't help but feel for a guy like that. And I got to know Rick years later, and he's just a really good dude. So, you know, it's tough to see like something like that happen. But I mean, he would just throw a freaking nasty hammer, boom, paint it, and then he'd go fastball and just go, and the whole crowd, like everybody, the fans in St. Louis, like I said, they're amazing. But you would hear them all go, oh,
Yeah.
and then they start like, oh, come on. They start clapping and like trying to
Yeah.
like cheer
Just
him
made it
on.
worse.
And it was just, he would just paint a couple and then boom,
Yeah.
launch one. I think I think that was the last time he pitched in the big leagues too. I think he got sent down after that game, and then, you know, obviously a great athlete and a great player, and was able to come back as a position player,
Yeah.
which is
He could hit.
unheard of. And yeah. And then he just hosed guys out from the outfield because his arm was phenomenal.
Right.
And I actually got the opportunity to play with him, you know, after I retired in that Kansas Stars, or I don't know if it was, I don't know if it was in Kansas. I think it might have been when we were in Louisville.
Yeah.
Louisville. You got to say it like that. You can't say Louisville. You got to say Louisville. And he actually came in and pitched. I have video on my phone. I was taking it, and I mean, he threw well. You know, didn't he
Yeah.
was
Got
kind of
through it
over
at
it
that
by
point.
then. So yeah. And then my only personal experience, and I don't know if I've told a lot of people this, but I was warming up, and I don't know what year it was. It was one of my first years in Pittsburgh. Um, and we were on the top bullpen in PNC, and right to the left of the bullpen is a bathroom door. Well, you know, it gets hot in the summer or whatever, it gets kind of swampy in there, so they'd open the door to like let some air go in there, and the door is wide open, and I'm getting loose on the left mound, and I'm just throwing. They get me going, you know, get hot, get hot. So I'm just freaking just throwing rapid fire, letting it go. I get on the mound, I start throwing, boom, boom. All of a sudden, whoom, I throw one in the bathroom, like, and it's probably, you know, it's probably further than this from the plate, but it's a pretty good distance away. And
Yeah.
I just, whoom, the ball goes in there and bouncing all around, and everybody looks at me like, what the hell was that, Beimel? Are you freaking kidding me with that? I was like, yeah, I don't know what's going on. And then I keep getting loose. I didn't think a whole lot of it. I keep getting loose. Inning ends, they sit me down. And while I'm sitting there, I get like water. Some fellow lefty in the bullpen, Scott Sauerbeck, who passed away last year, which is super sad, but just a funny dude, good dude. Um, he goes in the bathroom and he grabs like catcher's gear, and there was like a pole in there, like a pipe, and he just set up like a mask, put it around the pipe, put like a chest protector, shin guards, and like a glove. And he's like, there, now you can throw to that catcher. And I was like, oh, ha ha ha, everybody's laughing. So next inning they get me up again. Same thing. I'm freaking rapid fire. I'm getting loose. Doom, doom, doom. Boom. I throw one in the freaking shitter again. And everyone's like, are you kidding me? I'm like, I go, oh, I didn't know which catcher to throw to. Like trying to play it off like I was throwing to the catcher in the bathroom, and did it on purpose, which I didn't. I was just like, what was that? Like, what just happened there? And then literally never again, the rest of my career, never, you know, had that issue again. It was just that one game. And I could absolutely see how that can turn into something, because you know, it didn't affect me that much, but it got me freaking questioning there for a little bit. I was like, oh my gosh, what the hell did happen? You know? So it's very understandable why those things happen. And I know they can happen for a variety of reasons. Like with you know, you just started doing something weird and kind of threw you off. Um, I've had a lot of catchers over the years. When I started thinking about this topic, I was like, oh man, I have a lot of like stories, and there are just a lot of people that are affected by it. And sometimes it's functional, it's like you can still play and you can perform, but it's like that little thing that you've got to do. Like I played with a guy, Gary Bennett, who was a catcher. Um, and he was in LA, and the first time he ever caught me, he goes, "Hey, when you get the ball back, walk up to the grass." And I'm just like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, just walk up to the grass so I can throw it to you." And I don't like that shit. When I'm pitching, like I want to just get the ball back on the mound and get back on the rubber. So you think like it's not that big of a deal, but when you're pitching, it's like, yeah, it kind of is. You got to walk all the way to the grass and then come back. Takes a little more time, kind of gets you out of your game. But obviously, I'm going to help my catcher out if he's scuffling to throw the ball back. So, and he'd walk up to the grass and he'd kind of maybe give a couple pump fakes, and then he'd toss it to you and catch it, and it'd just be a little rainbow. So that was one, scenario, one example. And then I had John Buck caught me in Seattle, and I think the story goes like he was throwing to a kid in spring training or something. Kid like coach said something, and maybe I'm way off, but I believe this is a basis of the story. Coach said something. He turned to like look at the pitching coach, and Buck had thrown the ball back and drilled the kid right in the face and like messed up his eye or did something. So he always just kind of had that in his head. And he never really had an issue throwing the ball back, but he'd be on his knees and he'd couple pump fakes, poof, throw it. And it never went anywhere or anything like that. But he was thinking about it, and you knew it was something he had to overcome.
Yeah.
But then you see how many guys they can't throw the ball to the bases. I've seen guys over the years, pitchers who can't pick off to first. Lester was always like that. John Lester couldn't throw over to first. And then people found out, so they just take off. Julian Tavares played with him. He couldn't throw the ball on a comebacker. He just grab it, roll it over to first base. So, some of the best athletes and the best at the highest levels have had this issue. And, I even think back with the Dodgers, Hong-Chi Kuo just had electric stuff like crazy. And he would go in and out of the yips all the time. Like we were playing one time in San Francisco, and bullpens are on the field, and that's also a place where it starts, because you throw a ball past the catcher and it goes down to home plate and they got to stop the game. Now you're like, oh man, I better not do that again. Then you start freaking bouncing shit, throwing up over the catcher's head. But Hong Chi was getting loose. They couldn't even let him like pitch, because he just started throwing. He started bouncing them like 40 feet. He started chucking them over the catcher's head 10 feet. And then they're like, go underneath, because in San Francisco, there's like a batting cage underneath. So he was going in there. He's trying to throw. He's bouncing it off the turf. And then like, I think they sent him down or something for a couple of weeks, and he got his shit back, and then he was fine. But then a few months later, he's warming up at Dodger Stadium, and they've got like a little short fence there in the bullpen, and he chucked it over that onto the field, and then that started it again. So, it's definitely an interesting topic, and I think it's so taboo, and people just don't know where it comes from or why other people get it. So they're like, oh, I don't want to get that. It's like almost like voodoo or something. Um, they're like, I don't want to catch that, so we can't even talk about it. When in actuality, like, it's like anything in baseball, it's very superstitious, but I think that's how you get rid of it, is by talking about it. Because I come back to another scenario. When I was with the Pirates in 2011, I started the year on the DL, or I guess it's the IL now, but it was the DL back then. So I start the year on that, and I'm in, you know, Bradenton, Pirate City, where all like the minor league guys stay and stuff like
Yeah.
that in the dorms. And I'm coming over there to like throw and get all my work in and all that. And this dude, he's like, "Hey, you want to throw?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, for sure." So we're warming up, and he's like, I don't even think he's 60 feet away, and he just starts spiking balls at my shins. And I'm just like, I let a couple go. I'm like, all right, that's fine, whatever. Just getting loose. And then as he starts to get out there, he just keeps doing it over and over. And then he's bouncing them like 15 feet in front of me. And I'm just going, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, what are you doing right now? Are you freaking joking me? you know? But not one person told me. No one gave
Yeah.
me a heads up. The kid had the yips. And
It's
now
like, oh
I'm
yeah, man.
freaking,
That's the Yips
I've
guy.
got like 10 years in the big leagues at the time, and I'm freaking yelling at this kid, make him feel even worse, And I was not holding back but then somebody next to me goes, "Oh, yeah, he's got the yips." And I'm like, "You freaking assholes. Like, are you
Yeah.
serious? Like, no one told me? One, you're allowing me to warm up with him knowing this. And then
Yeah.
two, I'm not going to be silent about it if I just think he's being a jackass.
Yeah.
But, and then I feel completely terrible and actually, that guy went on and pitched in the big leagues for the White Sox. So you have those stories, and I feel like the industry has gotten better at that and helping with that because before it seemed like a death sentence. Nobody could figure it out, and
Yeah.
now it seems, and we've seen in our own facility the guys that you've worked with. Um, have had, obviously varying degrees of success, but most of them all just kind of get back to where they were before.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. There's a variety of ways that it happens, right? There's external stimulus and they harness it internally or vice versa. But usually there's some level of like a performance anxiety from something that happened, whether it was a guy hit a kid in the face or guys launching him on the field. There's usually some reason why it started. And then it just starts to perpetuate itself because that's kind of the point that they're dwelling on. There's a lot of strength in the way that you dealt with it, like being able to laugh at yourself and just go, "Ah, that's just a blip. That's not like now the monster in the room that's going to take over the whole scenario. Like they're not going to replace 30,000 hours of training from one throw. Like it's just
Yeah.
it's an outlier. Um, but very
Yeah.
similar
But I
story.
still was kind of like looking
Yeah.
out of the corner of my eye,
Oh,
like,
damn.
oh man, what's going on?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's something from my own experience where I was in that position and you're looking around, looking at people look at you, and then you kind of get this like, oh man, am I like an imposter here? Like, oh, am I bad or something wrong or what's going to happen? So those wheels start spinning. And then that's where your mind goes as you're playing baseball or any other sport, really. And then it becomes like that's the dynamic at where you're actually thinking when you shouldn't be thinking that way. So I had a similar story. Obviously, catching for a long time, the majority of people I worked with that had the yips were pitchers. And I've been in hundreds of bullpens where those things start coming up. They're launching balls or they're spiking them. I was in Brevard County, is high A for the Brewers, and they had like the cement slab mounds, or not mounds, home plates. So it was
Oh
maybe,
yeah,
I don't know, four
that's a
feet,
terrible
3 feet.
idea, by the way.
Terrible. Yeah. So they had like just one of those BP pads on top of it. It was fine. But then all in front of it was just cement. So we had multiple guys that it would hit it and launch and just go bah and go up into the stands. And people are like, oh, shoot. Where in a normal bullpen setting, oh, my bad. Hey, I skipped one. And it's just part of throwing and part of learning and adjusting and even just warming up. Like you're going into a game, it doesn't matter kind of what you're doing. You spray and then you start to dial in. You're like, okay, I'm ready. Go out there, get your 5 pitches or 2 minutes now or whatever, and you're good. Um, we had one guy, as you were talking about this, it made me think of it. is in rookie ball and great athlete. I mean, could throw mid 90s, left handed pitcher, and was just hot and cold. Like, have some at bats that were just totally unfair. Launch it behind a guy 3 times, and all of a sudden, just paint, paint, paint. So, what do you, how do you even prepare for that as a hitter? Like, you're so uncomfortable. It was like effectively wild. Like,
Yeah.
launch it in, and the people are like, hey, is he doing that on purpose? And then dropping a curveball, fastball on the paint, and then he'd swing and whiff at one in the dirt. People are just like, I don't even know like what's happening. But he was a guy where same thing, warming up in the bullpen. Our bullpen has maybe like a I don't know, 6 foot fence behind it. So for most pitchers, they're like, okay, that's plenty. And just throw into me, and it's not a big deal. And during a game, there's a stadium behind the bullpen, like the stands down the what was that third baseline, and he launches it into the stands. Doesn't hit anyone, but then it's just like everyone's looking like, oh, what was that? And he does it again. So he did it twice in a game before he comes in. I can't remember how his outing went, but then every time he warmed up after that, it was like he'd spike him because he was so overcompensated for launching it into the stands that he was thinking about it. Eventually, what they ended up doing is they raised the net. So they put the net all the way up behind. So there's like some comfort for the stands at least. But then even for
Yeah.
himself, it's like, hey, if you launch it, it's fine. It's not a big deal. But it became a thing for him where regardless of where he was warming up, it's like he was, the guy from what is it? Bull Durham, like throwing, like breathing through his eyes. He had to like really think about what he was doing. Where I remember it was Lee Tunnel, who was our pitching coordinator at the time. Um, Great guy, super knowledgeable. I think he pitched for the Pirates back when they had like the tall hats that were striped. So if you look
Yeah.
up Lee Tunnel, he's got like the curly Q mustache and glasses. Um, such a great major league picture of a pitcher from that era. But he came in town and he was working with him. And I know it sounds cliche or like a made up like story, but he had him throw with his eyes closed. And I'm catching him and I'm like, what? Like he throws like
Jeez.
93, 94. Okay. So eyes closed, just launches the first few, like not even close, just like basically in the dugout and then other side. And they start dialing him in. And he starts to finally kind of get it where he'd open his eyes, look, close his eyes, throw. And then it was like shortening that time. It was like he was just standing there with 10 seconds with his eyes closed. But it was like,
Yeah.
look, visualize, close, go. And it helped him to just, like I talked about, change his internal cue because it wasn't thinking about all the things that were happening. It was like he was focusing on the task of just like, can I look, close my eyes, and still see it? And eventually started to become pretty good. One of the things that ended up making it a lot more sustainable for him was actually in PFPs, where he never missed PFPs. Pretty athletic, you just go throw. And eventually,
Hmm.
that's what the organization decided to do with him. They're like, hey, that's kind of the arm action you throw from naturally. We got to get you to pitch from there. So you field, you get down, you throw it. Like, okay, well, if you guys are up here and you're having a hard time, well, just get down to a position where you feel athletic and you're comfortable and just throw from there. So he actually started doing that and it like changed his arm slot a little bit. So he started pitching from there, but it raised or it lowers his velocity, which probably wasn't a great idea for him. But he'd get to 2 strikes and then he'd bring it back up top and it'd be 95, hammer from up top. And it was kind of like a comfortable at bat for minor league baseball players. Like major leaguers probably not fooled by that as much. Obviously, if you're sacrificing a 95-mile-per-hour fastball now, that's probably off the table if you're in the minor leagues now at this point. But effectiveness helped him by having a couple of those cues. So if I could give just 2 tips to anyone that's dealing with anything yips related, or you feel like you might have that, or you have had it before, is to find one cue mentally that's working for you that day. That could be something as simple as, okay, throw harder or be athletic or just be on time, like one internal cue. And then the second thing would be to find some external stimulus, like the execution of what you're doing or dropping the arm slot or something effectively changing your internal cue from an external practice. That's where it's going to really help change where your mindset is and then get you back to being in a natural position, because that's essentially what we have done with guys here is some of the athletic velos, some of the plyo throws, some of the, playing catch with a football, are things that are kind of outside of their conditioned patterns, where when they start questioning the pattern, it's easy to regress into like just second guessing everything, and then they they get the yips. Um, One of those stories was actually from one of our previous conversations. The guy that was I was telling you about, he was fast calling a fastball, shakes it, fastball away, shakes it, curveball, slider, change up, back to fastball, fastball up. I'm like, two seam, pick. I'm like, I don't, he shaked like 7 times. So I call time. I go out there and I'm like, hey, what's going on, man? Like, did I miss something? Are you throwing something else? He's like, oh, no, man. Everything you put down, I just saw it getting absolutely crushed. So I was like, all right, man, well, let's throw what you can right now. So that goes down the different rabbit hole of the ways you have to be visualizing success and be in your happy place when you're performing. But he was the type of guy that had issues with warming up. And every once in a while, it would actually translate into the game. But it was warm ups that were the hardest part for him. So one of the ways as a catcher that I helped him was I had him kind of just switch up everything he was doing in his warm-ups. So he would like throw a football. He'd do some like double plays, like drop it and throw it. So if he launched it or something, it was just going, okay, it's fine. You're getting loose.
Yeah.
I also made it about me. So as he's throwing and he's at 70 feet and he spikes one, I would try to pick it or block it and just go, hey, appreciate it, man. Thanks. Like, I'm getting ready now. Then just make it like he's like helping me out, which I know he knows it wasn't a thing, but it was like, okay, cool. So like everyone else is just like, oh, that's just part of their routine. They're getting loose. Because then he got to 90 feet and he'd be fine, and 120 feet he's fine. But the same thing, it's like it would happen in a game every once in a while. He had this nasty changeup, but then he'd spike a fastball. And so as a catcher, I'd just block it, throw it back really quickly and go, hey, good job, like setting that up. I mean, it was a terrible pitch. It was an easy take, but it kept him kind of in that mindset of just, oh, it's fine. Like Dino's got me. Like, let's just keep going. And
Yeah.
there's so much strength in having the ability to mentally change your focus and not dwelling on what everyone else thinks or even just what you're thinking, that all the things that could go wrong, because eventually that's what happens. You think about, oh man, I'm going to get released or give up a homer here. Or I'm going to launch this one or spike it. And once you get into that dangerous position of thinking about all the things you have to do to like micro compartmentalize your movements, um, it's very challenging to get out of there without a plan.
Yeah. And as you know, baseball players are freaking ruthless. So they see a weakness, whether it's in your appearance or what you wear, or especially the way you throw, they're going to freaking get on
Yeah.
you. So, that
Yeah.
part of it doesn't help, if you're struggling with something and everyone's just going, oh my God, what are you doing? There's
Yeah.
I don't know if they do that shit anymore, but I mean, that probably is where a lot of it stems too, is because, you're just like, oh
Chirps.
my God, the guys are going to freaking get on me.
Yeah.
And obviously some people thrive off that and like that, but others, they don't, and
Yeah.
I think back to 2021. Now, I never got to see this firsthand, but I had a teammate, Michael Curry. He went to Georgia and he was a catcher. And I think he ended up in a game, like he was just the crowd's yelling or something, or they're chanting, and he's like tossing the ball back and throwing it over the pitcher's head, or maybe he threw one and then it just spawned this just crazy thing where he could not throw the ball back to the pitcher anymore, and it
Yeah.
made him become an outfielder. Basically, he got drafted by the Padres, and had a decent career. I think he made it up to Double A. I played with him in Double A in 2021, San Antonio. Um, but just a good dude, good sense of humor, but just couldn't throw the ball back to the pitcher, and he was no longer a catcher. It gave him like severe like anxiety every time he thought about it, so he didn't want to do it anymore. And then I think I don't know when it was, probably more, maybe last summer or something. His daughter's a little bit older. He had his daughter when he was there in 2021. Um, and I think she was throwing a baseball or something, and he was like catching her. And then it was like a funny video where he's just like, I don't know if maybe they flash back to that Georgia game
Yeah.
where everybody's getting on him. And then he was just like trying to throw the ball back to his daughter. And he like threw it and threw it right to her. But it was a pretty funny video.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, you just do not realize how many people are affected by this. And it's not
Yeah.
like the death sentence that it once was. You see people like yourself coming back from it all the time. And I don't know if you still had it a little bit when we started playing catch,
Oh,
but I
definitely.
remember you
Yeah.
doing some funky
Some
shit.
weird stuff,
It
right?
was just like, you had like this weird, like almost like a wave right here. And I was like, man, he throws weird as shit. He can catch, but he throws weird. But
Yeah,
then
and like it's
we'd be at like PV and like long, like weighted ball long toss.
yeah,
And we're
foul pole
chucking
to
that
foul
shit
pole.
like 7
Yeah.
ounce. Yeah, like 330 feet. Uh, and then your arm was like perfectly fine. So,
Yeah, telling you,
uh,
man. It's one of those things that it just built up to where you regress back to, like, the path of least resistance with, like, minimal effort and no problems, and it's not a great place to be. So it's like you start just minimizing or you start thinking and then you lob it. Not a great place to be with practicing suboptimal movements. Um, but for myself, yeah, I mean, that even came from some of the times, we're playing catch at parking lots and or we're on the streets, so I'm not trying to scuff up your major league pearl. It's brand new baseball, and I'm like, oh geez, if I throw this into the asphalt, like I'm gonna look like a jackass. And then there was a couple times I remember Rover at like Bruce Park in Manhattan Beach. And I mean, it's a nice neighborhood. There's some expensive houses and cars around there. And we're both playing professionally at that point. But I remember those feelings creeping back in. Where it's like I can throw it to you, fine. But like if we're trying to get work out of it, I'm trying to put a little effort into it, get it to carry a little bit. Well, I can't launch this because if I do, I mean, there's like a Mercedes behind you or an Escalade or just something. Obviously, anyone, just guy riding his bike down the street. And I'm like, oh man, I don't want to cause some injuries here. So that's where a lot of that really stems from. Um, and I've even seen it in coaches. Yeah, I've seen it like guys that just can't throw BP. We had a guy with the Brewers, great base running coach, outfielder, fantastic person. I won't say any names just so people don't put that in the category, but just amazing guy. And he would have to practice just throwing into the bubble or like into a screen for 20, 30 minutes before or after practice just to be able to cue himself properly to throw BP. And even then it was like kind of ugly. It was like, seeing some like funky arm actions. Um, and then people just stick with it because, okay, this is effective. I'm just going to keep it. Where in reality, you could always deconstruct that, break it down, find the causes and correlations, which usually there's some strength issue. And that's what gave me a lot of help to fix that is, oh, I found the weakness. And then you have that confidence in your preparation. The same things we talked about in some of the previous conversations is just if you're not playing or you're not having success, you have to have your preparation so that you can at least have some level of confidence when your opportunity does come. You're not just completely thrown off and nervous about it. Um,
yeah.
yeah. And I mean, I've seen it even
Yeah.
guys throwing. throwing like underhand flips and they just like spaz out and they got too many cues going on. It's like I just think of one thing to one thing. So it's a practicable, fixable thing.
Yeah, and I've actually worked with some BP throwers over the past couple years,
Yeah.
at the
Yeah, I
pro
remember.
level. They just wanted to be better at throwing BP because they did get a little weird
It's
and
part of
have
the
some
job.
weird arm action.
Yeah.
And they're trying to like, always throw strikes, and then they'd end up like cutting it. And then they're the BP thrower that no one ever wants to hit off of, especially in the minor league level, because guys are breaking
Getting cut
bats
up
and
in
BP
BP.
and
Yeah.
shit. Yeah. Like, oh my God, I just paid for that bat myself and lost it in BP because our BP thrower sucks.
Yeah.
But yeah, I worked with a couple guys and they're throwing well now. So yeah, that does happen. I one more story that just made me laugh. Like I said, it's just funny these stories come up, and you know, you you kind of like get an idea in your head and then you just get flooded back with things that happen.
Yeah.
You can remember a few things and then you start talking, we start going. Uh, I remember a guy when I was in Tampa, 2005. I can't remember who the kid was. He got called up. I was actually in Durham at the time. This other guy goes up and they start playing catch. He's a rookie. He's never been in a big league stadium before. And as you know, like the stadiums are gigantic compared to like the minor league stadiums. And I think he was throwing, there was a guy on the team, a lefty, Trevor Miller with the Devil Rays back then. And then there was another guy, Travis Harper. They were good dudes, funny guys. I think they were always together, like hanging out. They'd been in the bullpen for a while with the Rays, or Devil Rays, I should say they were back then. Um, but this rookie goes up and he's throwing, and all of a sudden just starts playing catch, on the side, and just starts launching balls into the stands. And you know, talking about baseball players being brutal. Nobody was like yelling at him. They weren't like, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" But then I think Trevor Miller went and grabbed like one of those big, like 10-foot by 10-foot square nets, pulled it
Yeah.
over in front of the stands, and then was like, "All right, kid, come on, here you go, throw it to me." And he said he would just like, it domed him up even more. He just started launching it off the screen, and then
Yeah.
they were just like all laughing at him, you know,
Yeah.
like no sympathy, nothing. It's
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah.
you're this is probably going to get you
You're gonna
sent
wear it.
back down, but we're laughing all right.
Yeah,
So that's
you gotta have thick skin to play
yeah,
this game, especially at that level, right? Like, it's part of the journey. You gotta be able to wear it, especially from your teammates, the guys you're around for 7 months straight. Like,
no doubt.
they're gonna expose everything, and they're gonna bring it to light, so, like I said, there's a lot of
And I think
power in the way that
even
you dealt with it.
yeah, I think even with that, I think the guy never had another issue. It was just like
Yeah.
it was probably more of a nervous thing. He was in the big leagues, he was around
Yeah.
big leaguers. So he
Yeah.
just like, geeked up and throwing it over people's heads, and then, never had an issue again. Um
Yeah. Some of your teammates can be probably the worst jeers and hit you the hardest because they know the dirt on you and they know how to hit you in the soft spots.
yeah, for sure. They're with you more than your family. Everyone always says
Yeah.
that, and it is true. I mean, you're with them almost
Yeah.
24 hours a day. You're on the bus.
Yeah.
In the minor leagues, freaking guys are farting, you know, on the bus. You're just like, oh my God, where am I right now? Or you got a roommate on the road. That was always the worst. I always hated have like the minor leagues with the roommates on the road. It was
Yeah.
so nice once I got to the big leagues to have my own room because
Yeah.
I don't like that shit. Literally, like guys like sleeping and farting in his sleep, and you're just like, come on, dude. Like, what are you doing? Or just randomly get up in the middle of the night and stumble all over and piss, in the bathroom. And you're like, well, I guess I'm awake now too. So,
Yeah.
um, a lot of those stories at those levels. But I guess last but not least, I know you've said a couple things. What what would be the first thing that you would suggest, um, if someone, obviously they should call you, get a hold of you and
Yeah.
have them help. I feel like I did help one guy one time with the yips. This dude, his name was Rob Bell. He pitched in the big leagues for a while, but he had it where he was warming up to go into a game on the field, threw one over the catcher's head. They stopped the game, you know, and he was just like, oh my gosh. And then that just set him off. He kept doing it. They sent him down to Durham. He was starting in the big leagues at the time. Um, he had a lot of starts with the Reds before the Devil Rays, but uh, he he came down to Durham. He's just like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. He was, kind of in his own head a lot. And I just said, like, what if you just didn't care? And he's like, what are you talking about? I said, well, what if you just like, I don't care if I throw this 20 feet over the catcher's head. I don't care if I like bounce it. Like, what? People are going to yell at me or laugh at me. They already are doing it. So, like, what if I just thought, like, yeah, I might throw this ball and I might throw it 20 feet over the catcher's head, and like, who gives a shit? And for whatever reason, he started like throwing strikes again. Um, so he had, a lot of other things going on, but I think sometimes too, you can like, obviously you can overanalyze everything. We always say paralysis by analysis. And I feel like this is a case too, where like you were talking about, you start breaking everything down into like 30 pieces or more of one throw, and you can't feel your fingers, and your fingers are on the sides of the ball, like all things that I would just sit there and go like, what? What do you mean? I don't like, well, do you feel the ball when you throw? It's like, I guess like I feel it it's in my hand, but when I let it go, I don't go like, oh, that came off, like this
Mhm.
part of my finger. It didn't come off this part. You know what I mean? That just doesn't resonate with me. So,
Yeah.
um, that's where I'm just curious if you do like the first thing, say you get somebody and they go like, I have the yips, I can't throw. What is the first thing you do with them? Do
Yeah.
you just go like, here, well, throw me the ball. Let me see how bad it is.
That's probably what's end up, that you're gonna need to do at some point. Like I gotta see like what's happening really. Um,
Yeah.
but I'd say the first hardest thing for a lot of guys is just to admit that they're dealing with something going on. I think guys in general, but especially athletes, they don't want to ask for help. They don't want to acknowledge that something's not going well. So usually they just avoid it. They just ignore it.
Yeah.
They stop doing it. They'll stop doing PFPs because that's where they struggle, or they try to get something in their training to focus on that's different. Like, yeah, I'm just going to hit today. I'm not going to catch any bullpens. You're like, what? Why? Like, oh, I don't know. I'm just having a hard time with bullpens. And you're like, oh, well, that's not good. Like, just
Yeah.
ignoring that.
It's
Yeah.
like the guy who's like, you're like, how's your arm feel? Oh, great. Well, why do you have on that sleeve? Like,
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
never seen
Exactly.
somebody whose arm
Feel
feels good
good.
that
And
has
you
a
got
sleeve
this,
on.
yeah, this big
But yeah,
brace on
that's
your
the
arm.
same thing. Like you're trying to be
Yeah.
competitive and you're trying to be at a high
Right.
level. You don't want to let people know when something's not feeling great or doing well.
Yeah,
But yeah, go
100%.
for it.
So no, that's just the first thing. And I've seen it, and I've talked to guys, and I've seen even athletes on the field, and I talked to them before or after game. And I'm like, hey, so what's going through your head? Oh no, I'm good. I'm good. I'm like, dude, you fielded a ball and you threw it like 35 feet. You spiked it. And I even had this guy one time. He never got the yips from it because he was able to laugh it off, but it happened again with a different kid in a different situation. But second baseman fielding a ball, it's like 2 outs on a college game. He's probably like 70 feet away from first base. So you'd think field it, throw it. And I mean, it's like a two hopper, so he gets it quickly. And guy takes 2 steps out of the box. He starts jogging, like, ah, shit. The second baseman bobbled it a little bit, and then instead of just regrouping himself, throwing it up, running the dugout, he like bobbled it and then tried to rush and tried to underhand it. But when he underhanded it, he like threw it straight up in the air and like launched it. And everyone's just like, what the hell was that? And so underhanding became a hard thing for him because then he just like had this like scenario where throwing is never an issue. And he's a good enough athlete. And he acknowledged it that it was just kind of a blip, like an error rather than like an ongoing thing. But then flip sometimes, he every once in a while he'd like spaz. So acknowledging there's an issue is like the hardest thing for so many guys to do. The second thing is then understanding like they can think about where their mind goes in those scenarios. Identifying that, like, is it the jeering? Is it the fear of what could happen? Where does like your adrenaline or your stress levels spike at that point so that they can start to understand kind of like what you said, like, well, what's the worst that could happen? And let's live in that for a second. And then let's get out of that. But I think majority of guys have no plan how to address that. Like, what do you do when you get someone yelling at you? It's the same thing, your teammates giving you a hard time or your fans or the opposite team. Like you go to a place that's super rowdy, especially in like college baseball, there's a bunch of jeers and chirping. And it's like some of these colleges are infamous for that. The fans will be on you, like print
Ball
out your
four,
Twitter
ball
profile.
four.
And, oh man, was that Texas A&M? So
Yeah, I think
classic.
so.
That's great. I mean, it makes ESPN sometimes because it's like, oh no, like gets in your head, right?
Yeah.
So usually just starting with understanding what you're feeling in those scenarios gives you so much strength to know that it can be worked on, but most people just don't want to address it. So, like I said, that's the first part is understanding what's happening, how you feel, and then eventually having like a physical process so that you can, if you ever feel in that time, like you're on a field or you're in the game or warming up before the game or before practice, and you start kind of identifying you're going through that same mindset, you can immediately switch to a physical routine or process that's going to help you clean that up. I can always go further into detail on mine. I'm happy to explain this to anyone that's ever feeling this, but usually guys have never figured out how to deal with the jeers and the chirping from fans. And I think one of the best ways to deal with it is just to like find it funny. They're yelling at you, they're chirping at you. I mean, just to enjoy it. But some of the guys, it's also
I
the
used to
internal
love it.
side. Yeah, yeah, and there's some good ones. I mean, you've told me some of the good ones, and I don't want to misquote them, so I'll let you tell them eventually. But I had one guy. He was a pretty high draft pick with us. I think it was one of his first or second outings, starting pitcher out of a big SEC school. And he just got lit. I think first or second inning, he gets pulled out of the game. And he's just like frustrated, right? Big guy, throws pretty hard, good stuff. And our team's doing well. And he joined the team like not right at the beginning of the year. So it's short season. So I think it's like a bunch of salty extended spring training guys going into this short season. And then we get this high draft pick. And he goes up to the clubhouse and it was like his teammates. It was one teammate. He was messing with them, but he goes, man, they really overpaid you, huh? And that just like, man, that you saw him shrink in that moment, like, oh. And he felt bad, obviously. That whole night escalated. This is kind of a side story, but I can't remember where we were, somewhere in Montana, I think, and we're walking, we're in our polos and whatever dress shirts that you have to wear when you're on the road, but we're walking to some bar that's open after the game. We're walking down the street and this guy's like looking out of his car. He's driving towards us and he's kind of just walking by himself, brooding still. We lose and he had a terrible outing. And the guy sticks his head out, throws something at him. It hits him right in the chest. And he goes, burrito. And it was like a burrito full of guacamole and sour cream. And it just like, he doesn't skip stride. He doesn't miss a step. He just keeps walking, looks at it and just shakes his head and keeps walking. And we're like, oh no, of anyone to hit, of course it's him. He has like a terrible day. It escalates. We're in the bar. He's sitting there by himself. Of course, we're all kind of sitting together. He's like getting a drink and then puts his change up. It's like our first day of the road trip. So he has like big bills from his per diem, puts it down. Bartender comes back, gives him his change, and looks up, and some guy goes, "Oh, was that mine?" He's like, "Oh, I don't know." And so the guy's like, "Oh, okay." And he takes it. Bartender comes back and he goes, "Hey, was that my change or his change?" He goes, "Oh, that guy didn't pay." The guy just jacked his money,
Oh
leaves. So
my
he goes
god.
running out of the bar. So it just like things snowballed on him. So it was like this
Yeah.
one bad outing that, you know, it happens to everyone. You get whopped, you can't find it. You just, for whatever reason, the circumstances just didn't go your way. It turned into this big thing where then like the next few games, he was so like, you could see it, like nervous to have a good outing. Um, Good thing for him. I mean, he ended up making it to the big leagues. He's a great pitcher. He's still in baseball. I think he's coaching professionally now. And um, I just remember that day thinking, like, man, this could like wreck someone. And thank God he was a high draft
Yeah.
pick. He had like a little bit of priority. But if you're like a free agent sign, you're a guy that just doesn't have a whole lot of confidence in yourself ever, that could really push you down. And that's coming from your team and then some, you know, random circumstances. But um, man, I think of some of the best jokes and chirps and fan like just comments, and that definitely does contribute to some guys performance anxiety. um I think at some point it just switched for me where in college I didn't handle it very well, but in pro ball it became like kind of funny, you know. I remember one
Yeah.
guy, I think we're in Billings, Montana. This was like rookie ball, and same thing, bullpens on the side, like on the field. I'm warming up a guy before the game, catching him. I can't remember what he said. Something about being Asian, right? And you can't have like thin skin. He's like, "Oh man, this guy's got widescreen vision. Don't throw it up. You can't see it that way. Just left and right for this guy." I was like, "What?" Like, that's hilarious. Like, I've never heard that
Jesus.
before. Yeah. And then the next guy's like, "Yeah, this guy's all arms and no eyes." And I was like, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. And, you know, we go in there and fans, they don't mean anything by it. Maybe some do, but it's like part of the game where it's like these guys are enjoying a beer. They're just chirping at you. They weren't saying anything over the top, but it was like, oh, that's pretty good. Um, but I see definitely, you know, that's part of the journey is understanding how to manage that or just learning that that's gonna happen. People are going to make fun of you. People are going to point out your flaws and your poor performances. And if you can accept that, you'll be in a lot better mind space to perform. And then also, that's one of the tools to get through the yips is just how you respond to those outside stimulus because it's usually something internal that's going to make it worse. So I'd love to
Yeah, I
hear some
used
of
to
yours though,
love
man.
yeah, I loved when people talk shit to me, as long as they were
Yeah.
good. I mean, you go to, like, Philadelphia and,
Yeah, there's you
something like
suck or
they're
screw
yeah,
you.
"You
Like,
suck,"
all right, man, come on.
flipping you off, and,
Right.
you know, you get, like, an 8-year-old, like, grabbing his crotch, like, flipping you off, and you're just like,
Classic
what is
Philly.
this place? What's going on?" Yeah. So
Yeah.
that part's stupid. Anytime that you're like, "Oh, you suck." Uh, but, like, Chicago was always fun for me. Great fans there that will just talk so much shit,
Yeah.
and I freaking love that. So I'd be, like, warming up, and they'd be yelling at me, and if they said something good or something funny, I would stop, take time to, like, acknowledge it or
Yeah. Like,
say
all right,
something
that
back,
was cool.
you know? They're
Yeah.
talking shit and, you know, you're kinda throwing, you're looking, you know, in between pitches, "Who's saying that?" And then you see the guy, and you're like, "Oh my god, you're the one talking shit? Like, look at you."
Yeah.
Like, and they'll be like, "What? What?" And then they
Yeah.
can't handle, you know, anything
Yeah.
back. Um, San Francisco for me was always awesome because, when I played for the Dodgers, I mean, I just got harassed the whole time, and I always loved when the bullpens were on the field. Like, I hate when the bullpens are off by themselves and you're kinda, you know, removed from the game, when you're, like, right out on the field and you're part of the game in the bullpen. I always like that. You know, a lot of guys don't like that, but, you know, I had guys, um, I'd be in San Francisco and they'd just be like, "Oh my god, what are those Dodger issued pajamas that you got on?" Because I always had, like, a baggier
Yeah,
uniform.
the baggy
I'm just
jerseys.
like
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, yeah, yeah." And then one guy's like, "Beimel, are you going to smoke the rosin bag? Like, had long hair and must have thought I was a stoner or something. So like some of them were just super funny, or they
Yeah.
do their homework and they know like who your parents were and who your wife and kids' names were. Those people would get a little ruthless sometimes, um,
Yeah.
which, whatever, didn't bother me. And I remember one time also a guy got me really good. Um, I was in Chicago at Wrigley Field and I'm running in. I got to go to the bathroom. So there's no bathroom, down the line. So I got to run into the dugout. So I go in there and I'm coming back and I'm running and I hear this guy super excited. Actually, I take that back. I think this was in Oakland. Similar situation, similar thing. Um, and I hear this guy, Joe, hey, hey. He sounds like super excited. And I think, oh, maybe it's somebody I know or grew up with or whatever. So I'm running with my head down. He's like, Joe. And I look up and he looks at me and he just goes, like as soon as and it just caught me off guard because I was not
Yeah.
expecting that. And
Yeah.
I was laughing my ass off. It was
Yeah.
so funny.
That's
Um,
hilarious.
but I always feel like it elevated my performance when somebody would
Right.
talk crap. That's even like, I got my bowling jersey on right now for tonight, the Beimel Elite
Oh,
camo
let's
bowling
go.
jersey.
Yeah.
Got to hit another 300. But like when we would bowl, after like on Thursdays, we'll bowl like another game for like $10 a piece. Everybody will put $10 in. We'll play like one or two more games after league's over. And it just got to the point I would start talking crap to everybody. But then I go a little too far. I think I'd start hurting people's feelings a little bit. So I backed off over the last couple years.
Yeah.
But people would talk crap to me and didn't realize like I would bowl so much better when they talk crap to me. I love it. I
Yeah.
like thrive off of it. So I was like, yeah, talk crap. Like I like that shit. Um,
Yeah.
but then and to this day, I will tell you this. I've been able to do a lot of cool things in the game and I've had some pretty big moments and some cool moments. Um, one being like I got to strike out Barry, not I got to, but I struck out Barry Bonds with the bases loaded one year in Pittsburgh. I grew up watching him, um, which was cool. And then I got to
Yeah.
face him quite a few times and did well. So that's, always a big career highlight for me. But when people ask me, like, the best thing that ever happened to me, like in the big leagues or my favorite moment playing, um, oddly enough, is when I signed with Washington, you know, after 2008. So I was in LA for 3 years and I leave as a free agent, wanted to go back to LA. It didn't work out, didn't sign me back. So I go to Washington and I am running in from the bullpen to pitch at Dodger Stadium.
Yeah.
And I got booed like loud. Like the whole place is just like booing me as I'm running into the field. And it was awesome. Like
Yeah.
it was so awesome. I was like, I was jogging in pretty good, and then everyone's just booing, and I just like slowed up. I was like, "Oh, I'm taking this in. This is freaking amazing." And then I ended up getting traded, and this is how knowledgeable like Dodger fans are because I'm the bullpen guy, right? Like the majority of that stadium knew that I was with the Nationals then. Um,
Yeah. They don't
and
boo
then,
nobodies.
well, exactly. And then I get traded to the Rockies, at the trade deadline, and we come back in there, and same thing. I'm running in, boo, like place goes crazy, just booing the crap out of me. And manager at the time, he's handing me the ball on the mound. He's just like, "Wow, you must have really done something here." And I was like, yeah, this is awesome. And had great games, but I can tell you it was so awesome. Like I took no offense to it whatsoever. I was just like, oh, I finally made it. I'm getting booed
Yeah.
by like 50,000 people right now.
Yeah. No
So
doubt.
it
Yeah.
is, it is, you do have to have a different mindset. That could have just like, hurt my feelings. And I could have got teary eyed, like, oh, they don't like me. But that's just not how I am. I thrive off that stuff. And
Yeah.
not to say, and we've talked about this before too, I'm not the guy who's like, oh, I'll prove you wrong. Like, oh, my haters, I'm going to prove 'em wrong, shit like that.
Yeah.
That doesn't motivate me. But I do have to say, 50,000 people booing me does motivate me pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's just knowing you for a long time now, um, where you thrive in competition. And I mean, it could be anything like duck bowling on Catalina Island and you giving it back and forth with like you and Cody and me and like, the other guys that we were with. It's like, all right, this is like his power right here. There's guys that can compete and be hard mentally and have the mentality and the makeup. And there's guys that just get exposed. They're hard on the outside, soft on the inside. As soon as that first shell gets cracked, it's like, oh, okay, they're gonna crumble. I think
Yeah.
it's definitely a trainable skill. Some people just innately have that a little bit more, whether it was their upbringing or, the way their parents or siblings were with them, or it's just something that they've always pushed on themselves with their competitive nature. I think that's part of this process, just to take it back to the yips too, is like identifying who you are. Like if you're not a hardline competitor, then identify that. That's okay. You can still figure out a way to fix the issues you're working on, but you can't outperform with tools that you don't have. It's just if you don't have
Yeah,
it,
for
well, you
sure.
find a new way to do it. Um, but yeah,
You
I'd
can
say that
you
was
can learn it.
something
You can learn it and you
for
can do it.
sure. Yeah,
It is something you do have to acknowledge different things, different weaknesses that you
yeah,
have. You can always work on those things, but sometimes it's better to let somebody else do it,
yeah,
But when you're
yeah,
talking about being competitive and things like that, I mean, we've also seen, and I don't think you would call it the yips, but we've had these conversations with other coaches. We've seen it ourselves where somebody is a high level performer until something happens. And
yep,
usually it is that competition or, they kind of, that performance anxiety comes in where for myself, that just elevates me to another level. Like I focus more and you get that weird feeling inside and your stomach feels like you're nervous and it's not necessarily a comfortable like feeling. It's not
right,
like I go like, oh, I'm nervous, I feel so awesome. It's like you don't really like it, but it helps you, like it gives you that adrenaline, helps you like elevate yourself to the next level.
yeah,
And I feel like I was always able to do that. And like I said, I'm not going to sit here and say I like it. I did not like that feeling at all. I don't know if anyone does. Um, but there is also a type of person where that kind of cripples them. And it's very understandable because it's so weird, when you start
yeah,
thinking about it. And we have seen where somebody's a pitcher and throws, 93 to 95 and they get that performance anxiety and now all of a sudden they're throwing 82, 83 and they can't throw any harder.
yeah.
Um, you know what I
That's a
mean?
real
And
thing.
it is very similar in that aspect to where it might not be considered the yips, but it
Yeah,
kind of is. It's kind of the same thing because they
yeah,
are lacking in performance over something that's causing it when if they don't have that stimulus, they're completely fine. But as soon as they have to compete and as soon as they have to, you know, there's expectations on them to get a job done, things start to crumble.
yeah. To pinpoint that, I mean, we've seen that guys get really good at drills or training or throwing bullpens in certain scenarios, especially when it comes to pitchers. Happens for position players all the time. We had a guy that he ended up going D1. He's playing professionally now, but could not throw with people around him, like in the training settings. It
Oh,
was
that's
like
right. Yeah.
major performance anxiety, like launching it and then throwing like 20 miles an hour slower than he usually does. And he's like looking around. But when it comes to pitchers specifically, we had several guys that were like, man, this guy's really good. 90, 93 in bullpen. We go to a game and it's like 84 and funky. And we're like, what? What's happening
Yeah.
right now? What why is this going on?
I
And
remember having like coaches reach out to us like, hey,
yeah,
And we were just like, "Well, what are you talking about?" Because
Yeah,
we
he's
never
90,
experienced it.
93.
Because
What's going on?
yeah, they
Yeah, I
throw
saw
that
it
in the
3
gym, and
3
it was
days
like,
ago.
yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah, and I think the number one mistake that coaches make, and then a lot of parents and young players make, is then they always just tie it back to, oh, it's a mechanical thing. I need to do some lessons, or I need to go get another coach to give me another opinion. When a lot of times, if you're a high school or college athlete or just a young pro that hasn't really developed that routine, that's the big flaw is you don't know yourself enough to know how you're training, what works, what doesn't, what stimulus you need to have when you start having those issues, how to adjust your routines when you have, a shortened window or you're struggling to find yourself. Like that's so valuable to have not just the tools in your toolbox as an athlete, but also the understanding how to pick which one's the best at which time. And yeah, we see that a lot with parents like, oh, hey, he needs to do a lesson. He needs to get a pitching lesson. His mechanics are off. I'm like, his mechanics are actually great. He can't compete with a guy in the box. He's never trained to have the capacity to pitch as much as he is right now. He's throwing 75, 80 times more often or more outings than he did his whole life. So now there's a different stimulus and there's a different routine. Um,
Yeah,
but it's super easy to fall back into training patterns. And, that's kind of like the whole purpose from the way that we've pivoted our training philosophies. It can't always just be the lessons and the patterns. Like for young kids, that might work, but how many college guys and pro guys do you see getting weekend lessons at a facility? Like, it's not
yeah,
a thing. Like, they know themselves, they know their routines, right?
yeah, and it's just it becomes to where a lot of times those internal cues that you have or that you're getting from another coach don't really work, you know?
Yeah.
And sometimes they don't work for the younger players, and that's why, when you find somebody who's good at giving instruction, you got to hold on to them because they can get the most out of you by just talking to you and
Mhm.
asking what you feel or whatever, instead of going, hey, do this, hey, do that, hey, put your hands here, hey, do this. um the best ones and the best coaches, you kind of figure out, they help you to figure out what you need to do in those scenarios. They're not sitting there telling you,
Definitely.
because then if you're internally thinking and that's the voice you hear is like, okay, I got to do this, he said do this, do that, and that's not working, and now you're just kind of screwed, and you're gonna, your performance is going to suffer, and you're going to sacrifice that performance instead of being like, all right, I'm going to do this and I can change this right now. Or, I just need to throw the ball. The target's there. I need to hit it. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter what I do here. I just got to put the ball there. And sometimes that's the best way to go about it. Um, but like this whole thing talking about the yips, like that's obviously how that internal conversation um, has to be going negatively for you to get that. You know what I mean? If you're sitting there,
Right.
oh man, oh, all right, I'm feeling good. I'm gonna freaking throw this one here. I'm super confident. I'm gonna get this guy out. And then you launch one, and I have a hard time believing that it's gonna keep happening if you're like, oh yeah, yeah, that's all right. All right, here we go. We're gonna get back on track here. We're gonna throw this one down and away.
Right.
You know what I mean? It is really when you start to like spiral and you start s- that negative self-talk. Um, like I said, I haven't had that experience. I just the only time it happened where I was like, "Oh my god, that's kind of weird." But that was it. I didn't like sit there and go, "Oh man, I better not throw this one in the shitter again." I was just like, "All right, like I'm gonna keep throwing." And then I warmed up and I threw another 20 pitches, or probably threw 20 pitches back then because I was a young idiot and didn't know how to warm up in the bullpen. Um, once I got older, it was like I'd throw 10 pitches and stop and stand there. I'm like, all right, I'm loose. But back then, I just keep chucking until the inning was over, like every young knucklehead does when they're first in the
Yeah.
bullpen. But, you know, just so many scenarios, so many different things, so many positions that can be affected by. Um, But yeah, man, obviously I love having these conversations with you. It just puts that break in the week where I get excited to talk about this stuff and tell the stories and put it out there. And um, obviously, we're still trying to figure things out on the technical side. I did
Yeah.
find out, like, apparently I have the mobile version of Riverside, which we record, all of these on the
Yeah.
app, and I need like the desktop version to be able to send it to like Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So, obviously we'll get on that within the next day, but these should be available a little more readily because I know
Yeah.
not
Yeah. I
everybody
mean,
wants to sit and watch a hour long YouTube video. Some people
yeah,
do,
you'd be
but you can,
surprised, man. Yeah, just
yeah,
people got long rides or do it over a few days, and I've had a lot of just good feedback from people that want to hear more of our story or just stories in general, or they're actually looking for some context. These things resonate with people at all different levels and different points of their career. And so I mean, it's sparking so many things, like ways that we can take these conversations too. But it's cool to kind of reminisce about some of these things. It made me think about you're bringing up how people were so ruthless. I was thinking of we're at Ole Miss playing UCLA. You travel on a Thursday. Some of them they do Wednesday travels now, but travel on a Thursday, practice Thursday night, and we're in Oxford, and there's fans like cruising by, yelling at us, chirping us, honking, and we're like, what is going on? We're used to Thursday, it's dead quiet. There's no one there. There might be the grounds crew people or whatever, like the head coach is there and they're kind of checking out what you got going on. But um, yeah, they printed out. This is maybe how old I am now. They printed out everyone's MySpace profiles. It was hilarious. I mean, obviously, I felt bad because some of them got a little ugly. They're talking about people's girlfriends or their moms and stuff. But they did it all out of like the good heartedness too, of just like the nature of competition, trying to get in your head and see if they can spark a reaction. Um, but yeah, that was a fun time to kind of just realize like this is part of the game and like how you respond to it is really the only thing you're in control of. Um, and like we've said, we've realized that there's people that they can manage that better. And the same way, like with the physical cues, like guys that want performance of just effectiveness or velocity, like you don't have two schools of thought. It's got to be both. And if you can't teach both, usually then you have one that just they only teach velocity or they only teach just throwing strikes. In reality, you got to have all of it. So this is just
yeah,
one of those nuanced factors of it with like the mental game from my experience and from people's that have had to deal with this has been tied into our performance methodology of just identifying what type of athlete you are, working on those things. And it's um, really powerful actually to have visualization as part of your routine. At a certain point physically you can't do more than you're capable of, so having that as part of the extra work or the accessory work will really improve self-talk. And that was something I think I really learned more from you, probably later than I should have. But like the internal dialogue that you have going on has to be pretty powerful. And I'd say 95, 99% of the time, when we get someone with the yips, they have a pretty inconsistent or pretty weak internal dialogue, like where their mindset is, like their story. Like, hey,
yeah,
what is the story that's happening for you right now? And it's usually, oh, I don't know if I'm going to play next year. I was like, okay, like, all right. So we're already like down the road of this negative self talk because you're letting this all creep in from something that may have happened years ago or is happening now. But there's usually some rooted issue with the self talk that's perpetuating it or causing it. So, anyways, man, I love talking about this stuff, man. There's so many more things that we can go down the road with, and it's it's fun to just catch up on some of these stories too.
yeah.
I won't
I
go into
got one
details
last
on them.
story before we go. One last one.
Let's
So
keep. I got nothing else going on, so let's go for it. Yeah.
I was actually supposed to go to a baseball game But looks like I'm not making it. But anyways, uh, and I do have to bowl, another 300 tonight.
Yeah,
That's
well, hey,
another thing since
pause on
we've been
that, man.
having these.
You've had 300s, and now that you've done it, you know it's possible, and it keeps happening. So it's like that's part of your strengths as an athlete. Is that
Yeah, it's
you can
three
do
in
it.
the last 4 weeks, and I
That's
never
pretty
have them
cool, man.
before.
Yeah,
But I do attribute it to this too, because we're like having these positive conversations. Kind of
yeah,
gets us both, I think, out of just the everyday grind of owning a business and doing different things within that business. And
yeah. Carrying the burden of
sometimes
everyone
that can
else's issues. Yeah,
yeah, sometimes
yeah.
that can just take a negative effect on you because a lot of
Oh, for
times,
sure.
as you know, we're only dealing with shit. So it's nice to kind of
Yeah,
reminisce about some things, but I do believe that's a big thing. And, you know,
yeah.
um, and I did do it once, and then it's just like, oh, I remember I was telling Carly, like, I feel like I can do this at any point now. And then I went the next week and got another one, and then last week got another one. So has been pretty cool. But
Yeah, that's
going back
awesome.
to like fans talking crap, one of my favorite things to do was, and if you're ever confronted by fans that are like yelling at you, um, you can use this because it kind of makes them feel stupid and shuts them up. But there'd be, you get guys are hanging over the railing and they're just screaming at the top of their lungs, right? And you're sometimes you're like 3 feet away. And you're just like, so
Like, sir.
whenever that would happen,
Yeah.
you get like a drunk guy, he's like yelling, Beimel, you suck. And I'd like throw a pitch and get the ball back, and I would just like turn and like look him in the eyes. And you see him just kind of like, oh shit, like you're acknowledging him. And I'd be like, hey, why are you yelling right now? And they're like, what? I'm like, I'm literally standing like 2 feet from you. Like, why are you yelling at me? They're just like, uh, I don't know. You suck. I'm like, oh, okay. So I would use that one all the time and it would just make them feel stupid. But then if they were with like a bunch of people and they're yelling, they go like, buy them all. And I'd like look and be like, you suck. And I would just go, you know what? All of these people, you had whatever you could say in front of all these people, and that's what you chose to say. Like, that's really dumb. You freaking blew it. You could have said something
You were
funny.
unprepared.
Everyone would have laughed. And that's all you could come up with is you suck. And then, they just like fold, like, oh my gosh. So that was always my favorite thing. If someone was being a dick, like just kind of trying to make them feel small. But I never like yelled at them or like, do the John Rocker as there another story creeps in. We were in Pittsburgh and Scott Sauerbeck again. He came up with the Braves, so he knew John Rocker in the minor leagues. So they were friends. Um, so Rocker, all that stuff happened. He was like yelling at people all the time, and people were, fans were coming and screaming at him. So we're in Pittsburgh, and he's standing there talking to us. He's just a nice guy, very calm. He's just like, oh yeah, hey Scott, how's the wife and kids and da 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 da, and just having a normal, like, pleasant conversation. And then all of a sudden, a fan comes over and screams, "Rocker, you suck!" And he just flipped the switch. He like went like turned into a maniac. He was like, and he starts like saying his room number. I'm at this hotel. I'm in room, whatever, whatever. Come over here. I'll kick your freaking ass. And I was just standing there like, oh my gosh, what just happened? Like, how did he just flip that switch? And
Yeah.
then the phone rings and they get him up. And then he goes, okay, guys, well, I got to get loose now. So, I'll see you guys later. And then I was like, oh my God, this guy is a psychopath. But then, he went and warmed up, went in the game, shoved and did his thing.
Yeah.
But it's just, you know,
It makes me think of
speaking of
like
the
the
yips,
guys
did
that
he
are
finally get the yips? Did
yeah,
he
I
get
don't
the yips
know.
at some point?
I don't know.
I don't know if it's him. I know Mark Wallers,
I
I
can
think,
vaguely
did.
remember that, but I don't know if it was the Yips. I mean, I just remember the outburst, right? And the character, but
Oh,
he
yeah.
always reminded me of the guys that like even the story you just said had like terrible road rage. And guys that like they'll be flipping people off and you mother effer, blah, blah, blah. And then they get up to like their light and there's,
No, God.
they get in the parking lot. You pull in the
Or,
same parking lot. They walk into Walgreens with you and you're like, dude, are you all right? And he's like, oh yeah, I'm fine. I'm like, dude, you're just screaming at me. What's happening? Like,
yeah.
I don't know you, man. Like, but yeah, that's hilarious, dude. One more thing.
All right, man. What do you
Quick
got?
question for you. It came up
Yeah.
on my Instagram page. Um, I was actually surprised by how split this was. So I got to ask you. I had an orange. I don't know if you saw this or not. An orange moldy on one side. Cut it in half. So the moldy side's over here and the non moldy side's over here.
Yeah.
Is the whole thing trashy and you gotta dump it?
Oof.
All moldy? Or is the one side fine? And I was surprised. I thought it was like pretty 50-50. There was like 120 people that responded on it, and I was like, oh man. I thought, I mean, I'll tell you I thought I was just throwing the whole thing out. But like 50%, like, oh
I'm
no, you
throwing
can
the whole,
still eat that
whole
other
thing out.
side. Yeah.
No, no
Yeah,
chance.
it's not worth
No
it, right?
chance.
With the germs and
Mold
mold you're
is
eating that.
so small.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like no chance. Because
Yeah.
just because
I
you
gotta
can't see it doesn't mean it's there. It's not
yeah.
there. That's the whole thing, especially with mold. That's like um, I don't know if you have a piece of food and there's a piece of shit on it, are you just going to cut the side with shit and eat it? Maybe the other side touched it. You just can't see it. You know, there's no chance. I'm not eating anything moldy. I'm not
Yeah.
even like if sometimes you get strawberries or raspberries and like one of them's got some fur on it. Like
Yeah.
that whole thing, I'm throwing that whole thing away. I
Yeah.
don't care. Like I'm not taking a
Picking
chance.
them out.
Yeah, there's no need. There's no need for it. Just throw
Yeah.
that shit away.
Yeah. Well, it turned into a debate. So so maybe I gotta do a little follow up and see how many more people are thinking that way because I was shocked. I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
it's a little ambiguous, I guess, to what you think about how mold is and how it
right.
spreads on food. I guess you don't really know.
Yeah, I mean mold can be in the air, it can be in your house and in the walls and you don't see it, but it still affects you. So
Yeah.
no chance. I don't
All
mess
right,
with
there
that
you
shit.
go. So Joe knows, and he says no mold. Don't eat the moldy food, guys.
That's right. Don't do it.
Yep. All right, man.
All right,
Well,
man.
go bowl 300. Enjoy the day.
That's right.
Appreciate everyone that listens to us, and then we'll talk next week.
For sure. All right,
All right,
dude.
man. Have a good one. See ya.